Hi, I'm Tatum, and welcome to Mini Stories, the show where I make minis tell stories, make stories into minis, or just paint minis and tell stories. Between The Acolyte, Star Wars Outlaws coming out this month, and the fact that I'm finally watching The Bad Batch, I've been really wanting to make a diorama set in a galaxy far, far away. And while looking at my pile of shame, I found these pretty awesome models which were unfortunately far from perfect prints. But I don't care about failures, my idea is to take advantage of them. The TIE Fighter isn't too bad, so I can just use it as is, but the A-Wing will need some modifications. Let's clumsily close the gap between the pieces and the cockpit, I'll clean this up later, I won't. And modify the engine so it kind of works. There's a few more things I want to do with this A-Wing before painting, but for now, this will do. Spoiler, I will go straight to painting and forget about this. Turning to the TIE Interceptor, I wanted to add acrylic crystals so you could actually see the pilot inside. The front window was pretty simple, just cut a small circle and voila! The top one though, well, that was a nightmare. I spent a lot of time trying to cut individual pieces before giving up and slapping a far from perfect circle inside the piece. Now that I have my ships somewhat ready, it's time to set the stage. Oh look, the TIE Interceptor is primed! Anyway, it's time to set the stage. I found this pretty cool MDF board hidden in a bag from way back when I moved into the studio, and it's the perfect size. So after testing different positions for the ships and tracing the line with a that's not a ruler. Well guys, it's time to learn a new rule, get it? For this channel. Tatum owns 1,000 rulers, but he'll never find a single one. So I'll use this convenient key holder to trace the line, then realize I have nothing to actually cut this board and proceed to painfully trying to use an X-Acto knife for 20 minutes before remembering I actually own a box cutter that's way better for this kind of job. And with the board finally cut, I realized I actually need to cut the wall too. Oh no. But before I torture my arm with even more cutting, I'll sketch the position of the ships to make sure I don't actually need the full board. And by that I mean, I'll try to make an excuse not to cut the rest of the board. Spoilers, I failed. And I forgot about the XPS. Twice! Once because I forgot I was going to sculpt a wall with XPS foam, meaning I need a slightly wider base. And twice because I forgot I don't have enough XPS. But this of cuts will do. I hope. I ended up keeping the two smaller boards I had cut. I thought the tighter space would create a more claustrophobic environment, which was ideal for the chase. I've been trying hard to think more about composition in my latest works, and at this moment I thought this was the right call. We'll see if I was right. For now, let's trust the process. And after all the mistakes with the board cutting and XPS, I thought, hey, why not one more? And decided to glue the two boards without any proper support. So enjoy watching me suffer holding this board perfectly straight up while trying not to glue my hand to a random glove that was there for some reason. And now, the big reveal. Since this diorama will feature two flying ships, I need to make the supports for them. For this, I marked the spots where I want the supports to be, then cut these thin wooden dowels to match the width of the XPS foam I'm using for the terrain. That way I will have strong tubes to pass the wires through that will be perfectly hidden in the terrain. Let's do a quick test. Okay, the dowel itself breaks easily, but the foam and epoxy putty will reinforce it and give it the perfect strength to hold. Moving on! With my super support system satisfyingly certified and set, it's time to begin adding terrain bits. And this is where I must remind you, and myself, to trust the process. I began by sketching layouts for a couple bits, including an Imperial pilot looking through a window for story reasons, but as I glued the XPS bits to the wall of my diorama to begin creating the base for my terrain, I realized the pilot was adding a necessary detail, so I removed that bit. And with the XPS pieces attached, and after saving some tiny offcuts for future details, it's finally time to begin sculpting the terrain. For this, I'm using epoxy putty, hitting it with a rock to give it and the exposed XPS the right texture. I'm also adding a couple bark pieces to add more variety, as well as incorporating some of the bits I had previously printed, completely ignoring my previous layout sketches. Now here's where experimentation truly begins. I began setting up the wire supports for the ships, deciding to add a second and even a third support point for my A-wing, to make sure that it was firmly in place. Originally I had thought of leaving the wires in the wall and sticking the ships in there after painting, but I realized leaving the wires in the ship instead would be far easier. I glued them in place, repaired the piece I accidentally broke off, and moved over to the tie, which was easier in a sense but still quite worrisome. Due to the layout I had planned and how I want the supports to be invisible in the end result, I decided to simply glue the supports to the sides of the wings. While this is way easier to set up, it makes the TIE Interceptor extremely fragile. But since I'm placing everything at the end of the project, I just pray it survives the review shots. And with the ship layout planned, I can sketch the water. Originally I had thought of using water effects, but after watching one of Boyle Hobby Time's latest videos, I learned of a cool way of doing water using aluminum foil. And what better way to try something completely new that I've never done before than doing it in a very ambitious project that could be entirely ruined by it? No, seriously, it's all about learning. If this ends up being a mess, it will be sad, but at least I will have learned a few things. And with every piece of this diorama finally ready, it's time to paint, and time for Narrator Daedam to take over this video and tell us the tale of Savi, the pilot.
Unidentified RC-1A, land immediately and surrender yourself or we will open fire.
Savi smirked, as if they hadn't been shooting at her for the last 3 minutes, not that they had been even close though. The 21-year-old girl pushed the throttle forward, feeling the refurbished A-wing struggling to speed up. She had found the ship in the outskirts of the city 9 months ago, mostly intact except for a broken engine. Her planet hadn't suffered a lot in terms of battles, but there were occasional skirmishes between the Imperial authorities and small rebel cells. She was glad about it. Since there was no pilot's academy anywhere near her, scavenging was the only way she could get ships to practice. She had spent the last 6 years training on a flight simulator built with parts from the destroyed ships, and now, with this mostly functional A-wing, she was finally ready for a test. Shots echoed around her as she spun, barely dodging the lasers as they flashed past her ship. The pilot inside the interceptor chasing her was good. Not the best shot, plus she was an awesome pilot, but whoever they were, they certainly knew how to handle that ship. Savi opened up her comms, dodging a new wave of attacks.
Hey pal, relax, I don't even have weapons in this thing.
She sighed, looking to the sides. She really shouldn't have reattached the weapons to the A-wing. They didn't work anymore and she didn't even plan to shoot anything. All she wanted to do was fly. She wanted to prove everyone that she was good enough. Another pair of lasers passed her cockpit, dangerously close.
RC-1A, land immediately. I repeat, land immediately.
Tie in, you know what you have to do. Until then, I'm afraid I'll be forced to disobey.
Savi smiled, seeing the massive cliff in front of her getting closer and closer. It was time to show who she was. Yanking the controls, the girl let out an excited roar as the ship violently changed direction, very narrowly missing the rocky cliff. The TIE closed in on her, veering to the left as it approached the cliff and firing another shot. The laser hit the rocks right behind Savi, and this time, she did get scared. The blast shook her ship, a cloud of dust and debris exploding outward. Both ships were impacted by the rocks as they flew outward and down to the waters below. For the first time, Savi wondered if this plan had been good at all. Repairing a broken ship, then piloting it knowing that the Empire would notice her, expecting them to do it. I should have repaired the TIE, she admitted, but it was too late now. If she surrendered, she'd go to jail. If she continued, maybe, just maybe, she would achieve her goal. If she didn't die, that was. She smiled, passion and confidence filling her. The choice was obvious.
Well, partner,
She said through the comms, preparing for a new evasive maneuver.
last chance. Accept me in your squad, or at least refer me to another. I won't stop flying until you do.
The radio stayed silent for what seemed like an eternity. Savi felt her hands tense on her controls. She kept waiting for a new shot from the interceptor, ready to dodge, but the shot didn't come. A new voice broke through the comms, startling her.
RC1A. Welcome to Sendero Squad.
Finally, after over 40 hours of work, the diorama is finally finished. Considering how intense this project was, its overall scope, and how many new techniques I incorporated into it, I couldn't be happier with the result. As always, if you enjoyed the video, let me know by hitting the like button and leaving a comment below, and subscribe if you want to see more. I will be back next month with more minis to paint and more stories to tell. Take care, and thanks for watching.